So I experienced angelic frequency because to me, everything is frequency and consciousness. And so it would start like fireflies and expand into kind of a silhouette. To me, I didn't see winged, long haired beings. I saw more of this like really nurturing, calming, grounding cross between cobalt blue and a bright purple with some silver. And they would grow and expand, and usually between 8 and 12 feet tall. They're big.
I know they're big. I perceive them as being big too.
Yeah, you just come in like.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Julie Ryan Show. It's where we blend spirituality and practicality to help you live a life of purpose and joy. We have Sarah Grace on the show with us today. Sarah is a medical intuitive, psychic paramedic, and author who's spent more than 2 decades blending emergency medicine with intuitive insight. On the front lines of countless life and death moments, including her own NDE, Sarah discovered that spirit was always present, guiding and comforting both patients and providers. Sarah proves that intuition belongs everywhere, even in ambulances and ERs. I'm looking forward to exploring Sarah's remarkable journey from emergency medicine to energy medicine and how she helps others awaken their own intuitive gifts. Please remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends. Now, let's go talk with Sarah. Sarah, welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled to have you join us today.
Thank you for having me, Julie. It's awesome to be here.
You say you bridge the mainstream and holistic worlds to help people. What do you mean by that?
Well, I spent 15 years in California's busiest 911 systems as a paramedic. And I've also been highly intuitive and energetically sensitive since I was a kid. So I used those abilities as a paramedic, not intending or knowing at the time, but eventually becoming open to this world and educated. And so now I'm all about medical intuition and holistic and Western awareness as well.
All right. So you can't just kind of drop that as a tease. I worked in one of the busiest. So where did you work? What areas of California?
South Central Los Angeles is where I started, Compton, Inglewood.
Yikes.
Yeah, go big or go home. That's how I do it. And it was amazing, absolutely incredible. From there, I went to San Jose, and then I went to Sacramento, 911.
So South Central LA, I was a sales rep selling hospital supplies in Los Angeles in the mid 80s. And we didn't have the GPS yet. So I had to look all these places up on a map. That's why I know LA so much better than most people that have lived there all their lives. And the first few times I went, I was really afraid because people had told me, now you need to be smart about this when you do that. And then after that, my awareness was raised. It was heightened, certainly, but I didn't feel unsafe in the hospital. And walking into a hospital like that, whatever I was worried about in my life, it immediately vanished because it was like, what the heck do I have to complain about with what these people have going on in their lives? When you were there, how did you feel? Were you warned about the same kind of thing? Certainly you were part of a team, but
yes,
it was still very dangerous.
Yes, intuitively. And right around that time, because I was in right after the riots, is kind of when I began my career. And speaking of that area, it has grown into such a beautiful community now, and so much more integration, which is awesome. Back then, it was much more dysregulated. And my intuition, it's been a ride, girl. Like, I'll tell you the whole thing, but getting me to the point of becoming an EMT and then eventually a paramedic, not knowing my first assignment would be in South Central. But it made perfect sense because of my background, where I come from, my upbringing with the violence, with the chaos. The 911 system of South Central, I just took to it like a duck to water because I was so familiar with the intensity. And being part of a team, is definitely, a good thing too. But it was a really I absolutely adored being around people, and I still to this day am like this. I love being away from the bubble and, like, being in other people's experiences that are nothing like mine because I find that we can learn the most about ourselves in places like that. So, I had so many incredible conversations with longtime gang members and, I did like, "I don't understand, I'm from South Dakota, man, like, tell me why are you guys shooting each other?" I don't get it, but by the time they'd be done explaining it, it would make sense. They're a family, right? And having the understanding of one of my favorite, memories from there that stuck with me was transporting a longtime Crip and gang member, and we had, we're in, LA traffic, so we're like a 45-minute, hour-long ride, and I was like, "Alright, man, break this down for me because I don't get it." So he was sharing kind of the family and how they, like, are really, looking out for one another. But he also shared that he'd been to Hollywood once in his life, which is like 7 miles up, and he had never been to the ocean, which is right over there. So you have to understand the area geographically is their life, it's what they know. And so it was so rich and, like, the wisdom and being around that was just such a gift. My whole 911 experience. Oh, career.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in emergency rooms as well in my career, especially early in my career, and some of the busiest emergency rooms, Big County, USC, I mean, I think that's the busiest one in the whole country, and boy, if you have something really wrong with you, that's where you wanna go, because those guys that work in those big trauma hospitals, they know what to do. So when you started being did you say you started as an EMT and then progressed to a paramedic?
Yeah, because an EMT is basic level, and then that's like CPR and, driving and prepping meds and prepping innovation and things, and then the paramedic is the advanced, and so obviously that's more schooling and education, and so the good thing to do is to go become a good solid EMT so you understand the mechanics of a 911 call. There's so many logistics and so many people, and you don't necessarily understand, "Oh, the captain's the guy on with the clipboard, and the engineer's hanging out to guard the engines, and, like, everybody's got a role. SWAT dudes do this," and, nobody explains that, you have to learn it. And so then I eventually became a paramedic, and I've been licensed, gosh, over 23 years now, it's crazy.
So when you first started out, you knew you were an intuitive. What can you give us an idea of what were some of the different spiritual things that you saw at the scene of an accident or when you were on a call helping somebody that was in need of medical care?
Yeah, I saw, everything that is in your book, I saw repeatedly thousands of times, and it's incredible in terms of midwifing, I understood. So, let me start by sharing that when I began my career, I was not open to my gifts, I was still closeted. Due to my upbringing, I had had a lot of shame for being different and being like this, being sensitive. My gifts started when I was 7. They just came on and progressed. Add that to the volatility of the home life, and it was a lot to navigate and manage. So I went through all of these things and eventually became an EMT and finally became like socially accepted. My family's finally thinking I'm like going to do something with my life. So I don't want to be around, all these alpha dog firefighters and being the weird girl who sees dead people, but my strength is clairvoyance. The next is going to be knowing and feeling. Then I can hear and then I see mediums of dead people. So it's kind of the full spectrum of giftedness that has been with me for a long time now. But when I would come onto the scene, I was not trying to do anything, but precognizance was awesome because I always knew what was gonna happen before it did, so I was prepping the drugs and the defibrillator and whatever it is that we needed ahead of whatever the event was, and I became the paramedic who was always there for death. So I was able to midwife essentially and watch the auric field expand, watch the chakra systems release. Depending, is this a medical death? How long have they been in the state of expansion, right? You talk about that stuff. Um, Or was it a traumatic death where there would be angels that would come on to kind of ground and coalesce the scene and get the soul to understand that they're dead? And so telepathically, I'd be communicating with the soul that just got shot or, it was in a car accident or whatever traumatic event happened. So it was a really interesting, intense experience, especially when I first didn't understand. I still had resistance to being like this, and I didn't have anywhere to put it or anyone to share it with at the time. So that was a really heavy load. But over the course of 15 years and thousands of calls and using the abilities to like witness, like, this is helping people. So I was shamed and condemned when I finally asked a family member, like, why do I see dead people? Why am I seeing all these colors around people? And they're like, hellfire and brimstone. We'll send you to the loony bin. Don't ever say that. And I was all like, it's a little kid. And so I internalized that toxic shame. But my lived experience in the 911 system with helping in such extreme situations, it just proved that I was accurate. So that began my healing journey in acceptance.
Were you able to communicate with the angels and the other deceased loved ones, spirits that were around your patient? And did they give you guidance? Did they help in the process as your patient was either had just transitioned or was in the middle of transitioning? Did they play a role in guiding you to help take care of your patient, I guess is what my
Yes.
question.
Sometimes they would tell me specific phrases to say to the patient so that the patient would feel more at ease in letting go.
Can you give us an example of one of those?
One of them was talking about, well, one of my favorite ones was a skilled nursing facility, and the wife was dying, and the spirit of the husband, he was just like a jovial, kind of well-dressed fellow with a cane and a hat, and so I'm start to describe him to her, and there was, like, a message about something that they used to say. I don't remember it went so long specifically, but, like, what they used to say to one another, and she was like, he's really here."
Oh,
So she
I've got goosebumps
She's
on that story. Yeah.
clinging, and then there's that, like, "I'm okay." So we transported her, and as soon as we get her over onto the hospital bed, and then the messages are relayed, she goes. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Mhm.
wonderful. How about the angels? What's the role the angels play, especially in an emergency situation?
Most of them do not communicate, like, anything auditory. Is vibration. So I experienced angelic frequency because to me, everything is frequency and consciousness. And so it would start like fireflies and expand into kind of a silhouette. To me, I didn't see winged, long haired beings. I saw more of this like really nurturing, calming, grounding cross between cobalt blue and a bright purple with some silver. And they would grow and expand, and usually between 8 and 12 feet tall. They're big.
I know they're big. I perceive them as being big too.
Yeah, you just come in like, and it wasn't anything like, "Okay, you need to do this." It's just the energy is right? And so, for instance, an everyday trauma, somebody gets T-boned or is in an accident on the way to work, and the body's in the car crumpled. And I can see the body in the car crumpled, and there's the protocol of what we have to do. Jaws of life, extrication, shutting down the freeway, what's our transport? There's all these things, right, that have to happen. Handling the logistics of that while assessing the physical body, while seeing the soul standing next to the physical body, which of course looks like the person, but you can see through them,
It's
right?
a hologram.
It is. It's so cool to see. And the person's not like confused. Like, I was just drinking my latte. I just went to Starbucks. Like, what's happening? And there was so much confusion. So I, over the course of time, developed kind of a telepathic protocol. Like, hey, I can see you. You're in a car accident. You're dead. We're going to pull you out, start CPR. And I'm like, boom, 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 telepathically communicating. And they'd be like, trying to kind of understand. And in the moments just before death, if the person was to die, which the majority of traumas do. And that's not a bad thing, right? It's just part of what is. The angel would come in, and so if the soul was trying to get back into the body or was just super, like, scared or confused, say after, like, a school shooting, an MCI, something that's, like, really terrifying, people just are like, one of these
What's an
California
MCI?
multi-casualty incident.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for translating that.
It's good. Yeah, I want people to get it, but there's instances like, these big devastating fires where a whole bunch of people go at once. So these angels will come in and just hold this frequency, and it's almost like a lighthouse, or like it's just calming so that the soul can then start to look and be like, "Oh," and I think you described this in your stuff, where they go into, and I would watch the angel hug the soul and they would flash and disappear. And then I'm left with the logistics of the body and the extrication, and I know he's dead, but we still have protocols to run, and I gotta transport, you know? So,
Yeah, sure, sure. Was there anything that you ever saw that was scary from a spiritual perspective?
I didn't like, well, watching people cling and try to crawl back into their bodies knowing that they weren't going to be able to get back in. Decapitations, incinerations, those kinds of things. You just know there's no, and so watching the soul go through that clamoring was very hard on me, and that gave me a bit of PTSD because it's like, where do you put that? How do you talk about that? And I had never seen, and I've seen a lot of death, like a lot of death firsthand up close, right? I have never seen anything dark come get a soul ever,
Me neither. Yep. Doesn't
ever.
exist. Yep.
Mm-mm.
It's movies.
I've seen darkness all over the living through poisons and toxins and addictions and trauma, etc. So, in terms of death, nothing to fear. And that's one of the things when I was looking at your stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, soul sisters. We totally get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
Why do you think it's been portrayed like that in the last however many years, hundreds of years, millennia, even the negative? Is it because there were religions and cultures and governments trying to control the masses with fear? Do you believe that it's somebody's fight or flight and they're losing clarity, and so they're in fear and they've been taught that if they're seeing spirits that it's bad? What do you think's behind all of that?
both of those. And if we pull back, we as humans, we're pretty earth centric and egocentric, thinking that we're the supreme. Is pretty cute. So we focus here on like the structure here. So we understand this is a dualistic paradigm: light, dark, masculine, feminine, high, low, yin, yang. And the elements of control, we're going in, and we were in Piscean, right, era, and now we're going into Aquarius or whatever, but there's these huge timelines that have played out for millennia, and I don't know if they're every 1,000 years or 2,000 years, but there's a higher consciousness just kind of playing here and having this experience through us, right? And so there's these topical overlays. And so we're in this time where it's been dark masculine, fear, power, greed, lust, control, anger, hatred. And we're seeing the compression of that because starting this year for the next 10 years, supposedly, we're going into the next awakening phase. And it's not like we're doing it. We're along for the ride. Our consciousness, our vibration can assist. But there's this huge topical timeline that's going over everything, anyway, and so that adds to it as well. Like, we're living through this time that's intentionally been dark masculine, and now it's shifting more into the light feminine. But we gotta go through the deep squeeze compression, which is really what we're facing now.
Do you think that we have the good, the bad, the light, the dark in our human reality so that we can create what we want when we know what we don't want? Do you think that's part of the equation as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think this is just a giant sandbox. And, really there's spiritual concepts of we're here to learn, we're here to grow, we're here to, and that may be true. And it's really a smorgasbord. Light and dark are equal in terms of importance in this dimension. We may not like the dark as much, and we're like, "Ooh, I'm not that," but we all have it within us, And take starve somebody for a second or keep them awake. You'll see it. It comes out of all of us. It's in there, and understanding what it is and then learning to integrate within ourselves can balance because we all have those elements in different proportions, right?
Right. Let's back up for a minute. You said that you came from a tumultuous family life. Were there other members of your family, to your knowledge, that had intuitive abilities and were basically stifling them because they didn't want to be ridiculed or seen as being odd or different?
Yes, to what I understand, both my mother and grandmother on her side were very energetically sensitive. It was never talked about. And she was one of the ones that I came to ask about it. And she's one of my greatest teachers because of the mental instability and incredible volatility that was there. And so, yeah, it was an interesting kind of lesson plan, if you will.
Mhm. Do you think everybody has the ability?
To varying degrees, yes. Everyone has their own unique gifts. Some people are creative genius in tech, while some people are creative genius in whatever, entrepreneurship or creativity in terms of creation. And then there's the spectrum of sensitivity. So everybody has the energetics, like similar energetics, like we all have the same organs, but there's different presentation and how we use that.
Mhm. It's been my experience that everybody has the ability, and it's just a matter of developing and enhancing it. So to the trauma deaths,
Mhm.
what's the difference and between that and the medical, and what are the commonalities that you see in a traumatic death?
So a traumatic death, obviously the energetics around the experience are going to be there's more velocity. And you're in your body and then you're not in your body. So there isn't this like gradual time to come to acceptance.
Mhm.
So typically, whatever the state of the body was for us to deal with to try to, get ROS, return of, heart rate and breathing and things. But the soul it was confusion, it was fear, it was like bewilderment. Um, and then it was 9 times out of 10, almost every single time, probably every time, the angels. And so I experienced, maybe you're the same. There's angels that are kind of like light beings and they're like more regular size. And then there's these big daddies that come in that are like 12 feet tall. And those are the trauma ones that would come in. And those were what I was talking about in terms of not having like the wings and the hair, but just being consciousness in this cobalt blue or lavender silver kind of really grounded, really yummy, stabilizing, calming, and it would literally blanket everything, and everything would go silent, and everything would slow down to slow-mo, and then it would crystalline, and I could see, see and feel everybody's thoughts, feelings, what they were doing, and then the experience of the soul eventually merging with the angel and disappearing. So that's what I would see. From that point, some people are like, "Well, what happens then?" And it's almost like an energetic ICU, right? Having to go into these little pods that looks like an ICU where the soul can decompress until their consciousness is coalesced enough to have the acceptance that because then a lot of them didn't want to die. They didn't plan to die that day. And there's this whole acceptance piece.
There are those who talk about exit points, that we all come in with kind of a life plan. It's my understanding that it's very generalized, and then our free will comes in to help us do specific things within that general framework of things we want to explore and experience. But there are many people that believe that we have certain exit points and we can choose to check out in one of those exit points. Do you have any feelings or thoughts about that?
I have the understanding, I've also heard that we have some people say specific 7 or 10. I don't know that we can energetics and physics, or quantum, can't really be put in a box. The human mind likes it to be linear and structured. So we want to be like, okay, we have this much, this many times. And yes, there are several different opt-out points, and I don't know that it's just conscious. Okay, today I feel bad, I wanna die. There's a lot more happening. So there's subconscious, there's emotional bodies, there's mental bodies, there's astral, there's all kinds of things that are playing into those exit points, and so just because you have those available doesn't mean you're necessarily going to know that it's there that day or take the out.
Mhm. What about ghosts? You talk about the traumatic deaths and the spirit, the soul. I use spirit because it feels less religious to me. Spirit, soul means the same thing to me. And I have encountered several ghosts and work with several ghosts over my time doing woo-woo stuff. Have you run into any, and how does that play into your patients who are so shocked that they've died, and they're going, "Whoa, whoa, wait, what's happening?" Kind of a thing, and you even said that some of them try and get back into their bodies.
Yeah, disturbing to watch. Ghosts, my understanding is just human spirits that hasn't crossed yet, and they get kind of in the in between. Is it bad? No. Are they hanging out usually in mental or emotional attachment to place, person, event? My understanding is that once the spirit, soul has whatever experience, come to terms with, integrates whatever, then they'll be like, "Okay, I'm cool," and then eventually cross. Some hang out long time, some get really, upset and throw things or whatever if we go over into the poltergeist range and stuff like that. There's ways to navigate with things like that, but essentially what I do, because I crossing, spirits into the light, which is just going into higher consciousness really, um it's just kind of a protocol, like, you can just explain, like, "You're in between, man, you got a choice. You wanna hang out more or are you ready to go?" And if they're not ready, they're not gonna go, but if they're ready and they're confused, they're like, "Okay, fine. I'm ready." Then just open a portal, open a vortex, of higher consciousness, and they'll go to it. One of the most profound night calls that I've ever experienced in my entire career was responding to, I went up as a law enforcement chaplain, so I was not working as a paramedic, during the Paradise wildfires, where 87 people were incinerated in an hour or an hour and a half, 6 o'clock in the morning, no warning, just and so we went in, to assist in I was there for the energetics, I knew that, but I was there also to help, from the law enforcement chaplain perspective, just calming people down. And we went into the heart of paradise, and feeling that much, death in one place is really profound. And there was one, trailer park that had been it just hit worse than any, and there was easily 20 souls floating there, like, looking around like, "What's going on?" Like, they had no comprehension of what was going on. And this was the day after. We went in the day after it. And so same thing, like, I had intuited to just I knew to bring specific crystals, and I knew intuitively to just put like, it was a clear quartz crystal, and they wanted me to place it in the center of the park, and once I placed it, a vortex of energy came, and then it was kind of the same as I've always done in terms of like, "All right, you guys, you're dead. There was a fire. This is what's up. Like, there are no bodies to come back to. This is where you go." And it was really cool because watching them, some of them didn't go right away. They were like wanting to process and take their time, but most of them were like, and it was so cool to see that many go at once. You know, that was rare for me, and that was powerful.
Did you ever share with your colleagues when you were out on runs what was going on? And if so, how was that received? And then after that, I want to hear about, was it accepted? Did they come to you for information that was more of a spiritual nature in the middle of being at an accident scene or some kind of an emergency scene?
Yes. So for the first long time, 8 years plus, I was zip about it. but people could feel. So in EMS as first responders, we're unique. We're a different breed. We run towards what everybody else is running away from, and
God
it's
bless you. Thank you for your service, by the way. Yeah.
it's hardwired in us. It makes sense. It's almost like I can come alive in some of the most extreme energetics and circumstances. There's these parts of me that just light up, and everything just goes into this like really streamlined fashion. And I wanted to fit in, especially after being shamed and thinking I'm this lone weirdo my whole life and then I'm mentally ill. Like, that's not fun. And I went through drugs and alcohol. I overdosed. I had I did the whole thing and chose to come back, all the things. And so I finally got into an accepted place and I didn't want to like volunteer that up because I was scared, but they could feel it. And they're like, why are you always the one who's in the middle of like the worst? And they could feel the expansion of the scene. They could feel, and again, mind you, I was not consciously willing any of this. This is a channeling, right? This is a higher awareness that's meant to come through me in this unique position to be able to assist and facilitate whatever trauma, whatever death, whatever. It's not about me, right? I'm the vessel, if you will, and I matter as a human, but this is like just part of my dharma. But on one call, that was a 30-year-old male coughed and had a ruptured artery and went down and flatlined in front of his family. And the whole scene was so volatile. Everybody's screaming. Cops are tackling people. It was just one of those like really like, whoa, this is huge because everybody's freaking out. And this energy came over the top of me. And it was like audible because I remember the cops like snapping their heads because they heard it. And it just went, and it dropped the energy of the scene to where we could actually get in and work. And so there was so many things where they didn't, like, see it in the way that I did, but they could feel that I was up to something. They always knew there was something. They're like, "There's something about you." I'm like, "Nah, I'm just hanging out," you know? But over time, we ran enough calls and I gained their acceptance and they just kinda knew how I was and they started asking questions. And what was cool, Julie, is even further, the more I started talking about it, me too. I just didn't wanna say anything. So a lot of them. There's so many of us, on the front lines and mainly nurses. Oh my gosh, are nurses empathic and gifted? Those guys are just amazing. And then, some police, some fire, a lot of paramedics, and we're able to kind of use this, but we're also in this, like, super alpha dog testosterone charged world where it's like, you gotta kinda maintain this bravado thing. So, fortunately, it's shifting and people are opening. Once I published my first book, which was me coming out, it was a really big ordeal for me to put that out because Spirit had me put all of my stuff in there, all of what I had been through around my struggles and addictions and the violence and my death and near-death experience and things, and then finally into coming into acceptance like this. Once I put that out, it just went boom, and then all these doctors, all these people like, "Oh, me too," and so it was so cool because I was like, I thought I was just so, like, isolated and alone," and that's not the case at all.
We have a a former ED director, physician, emergency department from a level 1 trauma center. His name's Jeff O'Driscoll. I've had him on the show, and he was in the closet the whole time he was in the emergency department, and he'd see the spirits of the loved ones. Let's say there'd been a car accident and he was working on a patient and the rest of their family's spirits would be in the room and they would help guide him. And he said that there were a couple of nurses with whom he'd worked for many years and they knew what was going on and they could sense as well. So they would come get him if there was something going on in the room and he would but he waited till he retired to come out of the closet. He said, "I would have lost my job. I would have probably lost my medical license." And I always see surgeons' spirits and other medical providers' spirits that are advising the actual medical personnel, both at the scene and in the emergency room and in surgery and all of that, and they're advising. They're always over the head of the doctor. And so it's really interesting. to watch that. I think it's fascinating too that we really have access to any information that we need at any given moment just from asking, and we
And
can
isn't it
do
amazing
that.
how it always makes sense? Like, it doesn't necessarily make sense cognitively, but when you're there, you just know what to do. It's just like,
Right.
"Oh, of course. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I gotta do this and this and this and this energetically." Like,
Right.
and I
Right.
also work with the surgical spirits. Those are my main team that I help people with now in my private practice. It's fun.
Yeah. Me too. All the time. Working through us and with us. You have teased us a couple of times that you had an NDE. So you are not getting by me, my girl, without telling us that story about what happened with your NDE and really how it changed your life or if it changed your life.
Oh, very much so. Uh, Super volatile upbringing, extremely life-threatening daily events and attacks due to mental illness, on my mom's side. And so literal fighting for my life in terms of that, plus not understanding the energetics and being so open, there's so much stimulus and it takes a lot to regulate a system and I didn't understand it. So I was really messed up or just kind of like blown open, couldn't regulate. Then my mom died acutely. She's 6 months with cancer and then she was gone. There was no closure, no resolution. And then I just kind of went off into college, floundered, got into drugs, got into alcohol, promiscuity, went off the rails at 100 miles an hour. And I was like, screw this. This sucks. I don't want to be here. Like, I don't want to do this. And so I had an overdose and
Did you know you were doing it or
doing
was it an accident?
No, that one was intentional because I was already using so many substances, and I had been in this place of self-preservation and trying to maintain a sense of identity and control, and I was sexually assaulted, and that blew that, and so that was kind of my last pin where I was like, "Yeah, I'm outta here, I'm done with this," and so I intentionally overdosed, went into a higher consciousness experience, which to me just looked like fractal mandalas. Everything makes sense at the same time. You can see, hear, feel, and know everybody's intentions, thoughts, emotions, why they're doing whatever. Everything makes sense to you. I felt love. I felt out of that pain and darkness and chaos for the first time ever, ever. And I'm what, like 20 at the time? I was young. And I was like, "Thank God, I'm out of here." And I'm all floating in the goo and just all like, "I'm never going back. Screw that. That was terrible." And then I hear this female voice, and I always get asked, "Who was it?" And she sounded familiar, like I knew her, but it's not like I could place it in terms of, is it my higher consciousness? Is it like a guide? But I knew her and she was super familiar, and she essentially said she was far more eloquent, think like oracle kinda vibe, but she was like, "Girl, you're not done." And I was like, "Oh, hell no. I'm good. I'm good. Nope." And she's like, "We get it's been hard. You chose a really hard incarnation cycle, but if you choose to go back, you're actually gonna help a lot of people understand their sensitivities." I just laid in my honey goo floating love bubble, and I was like, "Nah." And then I started to kind of because again, they show you data and information, right? So everything makes sense. You can see it. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's kinda cool. Oh, okay." So obviously I chose, right? Because I got to that place where they say if you come any further, you're not gonna be able to go back. And so I was like, "All right, I'll go back." So the funny thing is coming from a higher consciousness state. Now we see this in plant medicine ceremonies with all these substances, ayahuasca, bufo, all the things, 5-MeO, DMT, all the things that people are using, which are can be wonderful tools. But we go into higher consciousness, we remember everything, and then we just think we're gonna remember it. But we come back here and we forget. And then I was thinking, okay, well, you told me and I saw it, so you're just gonna like do it for me. No. Therein lies that was my shadow integration. That was my being forged in the fire. That was my boots on ground. I had to take responsibility for my life, my choices, my behaviors. I had to honor the trauma, see the trauma. What I've been through was like you could understand why I had been where I was. Um, and Like, what am I going to do with it, right? I hated my sensitivities. I hated my gifts. I didn't want them. And I had to come to terms with like, well, this is how it is. What are you going to do about it? And so when I tantrumed around after I stabilized, I tantrumed around for a few weeks because I knew that nobody was coming to save me. Um, and that, I had to get real with myself. And I think it's so common, especially in today's society. Just look at where we are. Externalizing power, blaming problems and blaming emotion. Like, I feel this way because of something external that's giving power away. And I had to understand that, yeah, I went through all that and that was intense, whatever. This is my experience. This is my responsibility. So that began the process of me getting clean. I kicked all my girl, I was smoking 3 packs a day, doing every drug under the sun, and, drinking Everclear straight. Like,
Oh, Lord.
big, go big, that's what I do, right? The intensity with me is just part of the incarnation cycle. And I had to get clean, I had to kick everything, and then I got back to being athletic, and I left the Midwest because it was not supportive to me. And I started to experience differences in life, and then it wasn't until I got to California and LA and went to the EMT at UCLA that that's when everything really started to open up for me. But the near-death experience is that higher remembrance of what we always are. People are like, "We're ascending to 5D." I'm like, "You guys, it's always there." It's always there, you know? We're here, like, intentionally to have the like, having the human experience, like, we get to play and have our likes and what we're up to. Um, but yeah, remembrance, the near-death experience changed me in terms of obviously, I chose to come back, and then obviously it started a 20 plus year healing journey where I dealt with my shadow, my trauma, went through shamanism, plant medicine ceremonies, everything under the sun, all of these different experiences to integrate and understand, like, who I am, why I'm here. Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that. The voice that you heard is calling itself your Aunt Bertha, and she said she was a spirit guide. I don't know that she was your actual aunt, but she said when you're saying, "I don't know who it was," and I'm hearing Aunt Bertha. I'm going, "Really? Aunt Bertha?" And
Bertha.
I
Bertha
said
is not necessarily an oracle name that you would
I
think, but I
said,
think it
"Aunt
rolls with it.
Bertha?" I know, but a lot of the, spirits and see if this resonates with you. Early on when I started doing this, especially talking to angels, they got these names that they come in within their 15 letters and they're all consonants. And I go, "Well, how am I supposed to pronounce that? Can you give me some American English name that's easy to pronounce that people are gonna know?" And since that time, angels will say, "Sam, Susie, Lou," whatever, and their name is probably some name from a dead language that we've never experienced, but they don't care what we call them because they don't really have a name. We're equating that from a human perspective, but I heard Aunt Bertha. So there you go, Aunt Bertha. So that gives you a name. Yeah, yeah, to do that. Well, thank you for sharing that near-death experience. Are you an only child?
No.
Is
That
your
was
dad still living?
nope, I have no living relatives. I have old siblings that never really had communication or contact with, and then parents are deceased, and so this has been for me, I understand now, yeah, I picked a doozy. This is an intense life experience and, like, wow, what a gift, what an honor to the experiencing that much physical pain, experiencing that much physical darkness, energetic darkness, uh, going down into all of those substances and using different things. What are we doing? We're trying to have a sense of safety and control. We're trying to numb. We're trying to have a sense of power. We're trying to make it okay, right? So when I pulled out, kicked everything, got clean, started kind of like getting my life together, it made me a better paramedic because we'd go on ODs and I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. And you know? And people can feel it when you've been there. They can feel that. And it's made my private practice as a medical intuitive and psychic surgeon, which is what I do now, like, they people can feel that because they come in with these, like, intense caseloads or client, like, kinda it's still very much 911 for me, like, anything goes, right? And I'm really, really grateful to honestly, because it's been intense, but I've had access to some of the most exquisite places. To me, being there in the last moments of somebody's life is such an honor.
I agree.
You think of all the people they've talked to and all the things that they've
Mhm.
experienced, and you're there with them as their it's just
Yeah,
such a gift.
I agree. Absolutely. Well, what do you say to people who say, well, we choose our parents, we choose where we're born, when we're born, to whom we're born, and the circumstances into which we're born so that our lives can have a trajectory to allow our spirit to explore and experience whatever it's coming in to explore? Do you have a thought about that?
Yes, and it's a little more nuanced. So first off, if somebody's going through something, it doesn't help to be like, "Oh, you
You
chose
chose this, honey. Yeah.
help." Please don't say that. It's like it doesn't take the suck out. It doesn't like make it any better when you're going through like the stuff. So under on a higher awareness plane, yes, we do choose, and there's also karmic programs, ancestral programs, lineage programs. We have so many different layers of data and information. There's thousands of parallel lives. It's not past lives. Everything is current. There's thousands of parallel lives simultaneously that you're living right now.
Okay, say more about that. That makes my
All
head
of this,
wanna explode. Yeah,
yeah, all
yeah.
of this plays into, right? So it's not just like this linear, this is my to-do list. I'm on Earth and I die and I come right back here. It's like, well, they're kinda, you know? But my understanding, and this is through shamanic studies, firsthand experience, clairvoyance, and yeah, using plant medicine experiences in the way of just opening to higher consciousness. To me, what it looks like is a beehive. If you imagine going to a beach and the grains of sand on the beach. There, every single grain of sand is an entire cosmos or galaxy that's as big as this Earth plane, and there's trillions. The human mind cannot comprehend. Because I still get out there and paramedic my guides. I'm like, what about this? But what about that? Show me this, but show me that. And I kept saying, explain it all. And they're like, no. And I'm like, "Just show me how it all worked." They're like, no, we can't. And then finally they just showed my head exploding. And I was like, "Oh, I guess it's a little too much data?" They're like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay,
We don't have the capability to understand it.
no way, it's just
Right.
too much, it's too much information." But it looks like a beehive, and if you think of every little hole in the honeycomb is a cosmos that's as big as the Earth plane and all of our galaxy and things. And so it's really fun, when, again, we are designed to be egocentric and, just kind of here in this. It's part of the human design. Um, but there's so much more at play, and there's so many galaxies and dimensions and things that are happening simultaneously that are, to me, way cooler. Because gravity is just not my favorite, and I have this massive energy field, and I chose a 5'1" body. I'm, like, the size of a 5th grader, and so I'm, like, stuck with all this energy in this little body, and so I navigate that, right? But there's so many dimensions that are just, like, the awareness and the consciousness and the civilizations and the technologies are so far beyond where we are. I'd give us about a C minus in terms of like intelligence on the spectrum, but it's just all what it is. Now, how do those things affect? Because I see a lot of times clients are like, I can't heal because of this past life, whatever. Now, there can be transference. That's usually due to weak endoric fields, dysregulated nervous systems, jacked up hormones, right? Where their system's kind of like, you said the satellite on their head. I like that. So it's like they're starting to get all this bleed over from some of the different parallel experiences. And they're like, my neck. It's like, oh, yeah, well, there's a knife there. Let's pull that out energetically. So, but I don't give too much credence to that. I'm aware of all of it. It's too big for the human mind to comprehend, and I surrender and I say, "Okay, like, we cannot conceptualize something that big." And then I'm like, "What am I doing? What's up today?" Right? How do I feel today? What do we want to create today? Because this is all we have is now.
Well, and that's become very apparent to you in your career as a first responder, for heaven's sakes,
Mhm.
that like you said, somebody's just Joe Schmo's driving down the road drinking his coffee and boom, he's dead
Every day.
because he's been in an accident that he never expected. Does Joe Schmo's spirit know that it's coming? Or you mentioned that sometimes the spirit seems like they're perplexed or confused. Do you believe that spirits know it's coming even though the human part of us doesn't necessarily know that there's gonna be an immediate exit?
Maybe, because the essentially the etheric template just looks like a grid, right? It looks like a blue architectural blueprint.
Well, that's what I say too.
Yeah, isn't it
Yeah,
cool? And it's
yeah.
so cute when people are like,
Yeah.
What color's my aura?" I'm like, "Where?" Because there's so many layers, it's not just one, there's so much
There's a
moving.
bunch of them, right?
It's just all this data
But it
moving.
looks like an architectural blueprint of a building or a home or something like
Exactly.
that. Thin blue lines. Yeah, I see that too.
Or human, or it's a flower, or it's a rock, or it's a
Right,
whatever, you
right.
can just
It's a red. Right.
Yeah, totally
Yeah.
cool. So, I'm sure somewhere in the outlying, layers of that etheric template, which is their design, there's obviously that is part of an awareness because it happened. So, it's gotta be in there. Do they know consciously? No, because, like, we're so down here in our little somatic, we got physical, we got mental, we got emotional, and most people don't get beyond that, you know?
Right.
Kinda
I
stuck.
agree. Okay, let's change directions for a couple of minutes. How do you address the emotional component? How does it show up, and how do you address that in your healing work with clients?
Typically, they'll have a huge release or catharsis during the procedure or the clearing, and that can look, small to really big in the way, convulsing or, just it's to me, it's just energy moving, there's nothing to fear with it. But we also wanna understand that we take it layer by layer, and emotions tend to get stuck, right? And then the stuck emotion, the mind goes and creates this loop, and it encapsulates that emotion, and then toxins come into the physical cells, and then all of a sudden you got a cyst, or you got a fibroid, or you got a whatever, and so it's like, okay, yes, there's the energetic portion of it, but we also have to address the physical portions of it. Encouraging people to feel their feelings all the way through without here's the key, you guys, don't hook in to the story. Let it come through and fully feel the feeling. You may be aware of, I was sexually assaulted, I was molested, I was like all these everybody's been through what they've been through. That'll come up. You may be viscerally reliving and experiencing that, but the goal is to get the emotion to really roll through in the way of just allowing it to release. When it releases, it integrates into the grid and it becomes part of your power. You become more balanced. The more willing you are to go down into your shadow, your fear, your pain, and sit with it. You don't have to try to transmute it. You don't have to try to throw light at it. It's it's there for a reason. Can you just be with it until it softens and starts to break up? Then the catharsis comes out. So there's nothing to fear in emotion. It's part of the healing process, and you'll feel so much better as you allow it.
Which is an interesting concept, and I agree with you on this, that we all think, "Okay, we gotta expunge whatever these negative feelings are. We've gotta get them out of us. We've gotta
Mm-mm.
not have those feelings that are negative." And actually, when they're integrated in a way that can be useful, it can turn into a superpower. Do
Yeah.
you have any
People not
thoughts
do
about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because and again, I learned this from living it. 20, 25 years of shadow integration and shaman and all the things down and in, down and in, down and in, over and over and over. And when I first came into the spiritual scene, it was kind of love and light and breathe and let it go and exhale and you got to be happy. And I was like, dude, I came from Compton 911. It's not like that's not real life. What do we do with like the real stuff? And there wasn't room for that. So I was like, okay, I have to just formulate what works for myself. And I was shown and taught to continue to go down into those places and just honor them Just honor them. Just let them be there. And if you can just say you've got chronic neck pain, chronic back pain, you've got some sort of GI issue or a fibroid or something, take your breath, just close your eyes and take your breath down into right into that tight area. And as you breathe and soften, that emotion is it's going to start to move up. And you might be like, oh, I don't want to feel hate. I don't want to feel jealousy. I don't want to feel it's all part of the human spectrum, you guys. It's
Mhm.
all God, it's all consciousness. And for us to say this is good and this is bad, that's just egoic thinking from human minds because of control, blah, blah, blah. So as we soften, understanding you have the power within you, you just take that breath into that crunchy spot, tight spot. You soften and it'll move through and it's not fun. It doesn't feel good. But what happens is it'll create this movement of energy and then there's a little void, a little vacuum. So then we wanna bring in what we want, right? This is where I see a lot of people like, "Ah, I just gotta get rid of." I'm like, "Yeah, but what about replenishing, yo? Like, your adrenals are shot. Like, are you bringing anything in?"
Wow.
Because it's not about release, release, get rid of. It's accept, ground, balance, and then go through and sit with so the emotion or the thought process integrates. But then what do you want? Oh, you want homeostasis, you want health, you want ease, you want joy, you want abundance. Be specific with abundance, y'all. Like if you're like, I'm open to abundance, abundance of what? The universe does not discriminate. Like, be aware of that. I see that all the time. I'm like, oh, okay. But bringing in, just ease. Can we just regulate that nervous system? Like you regulate that nervous system, you change your entire life. And the power is within you to do it. It's just that, you need people like me, Julie, we're helping hands, man. We're assistants, right?
Mhm.
And people can really step into their power. And it's my favorite thing in the world to watch.
Couple more questions as we're winding down here. What inner and outer shifts have you seen when you help people not only go through what you've just described, but also embrace their own intuitive abilities?
It's like a light switch goes on.
Mhm.
They'll go from heavy, lethargic, moody, depressed, usually carrying a lot of weight, to oftentimes, physically regulated. They often lose weight. They're energetically lighter. They have more open awareness mentally, which invites in new ideas, new thoughts, new experiences, new people. And so it's both going again down and in, and then feeling that shift, and then following it up with action. Following it up with, okay, I know my adrenals are shot. I got to handle the cortisol response. I got to get out of fight or flight. My gut biome is jacked up. I got to hydrate. I got to do all the, there's the things. My get a handle on. Do you hear? Do you see? Do you feel? Do you know? Do you see dead people? Are you cool with that? Like, where are you at with that? That's what I'm doing right now is I've just launched Empath X, and I'm so excited about it because we're changing the game on being sensitive. I think there's so much like fragility and overwhelm, and I know I lived that experience too. But we can actually be badass and we can actually feel really amazing. And so I'm here to represent like the new way of being in terms of being energetically sensitive and gifted. And so that's what I'm launching now is Empath X, and sensitivity is your superpower. But it's all about you understanding that you're in the driver's seat, that we're just in a sandbox. You can never be off path. You can't mess it up. We're just all experiencing different things. The more willing you are to take control and responsibility for yourself and take daily steps, they can literally change their life. I mean, I've seen all kinds of transformations. Physically, people dropping tons of weight, energetics, emotional regulation, people stop with them, insomnia, like the bipolar presentation or the fibromyalgia. That one we see all the time because their energy's just like gooped up. So they're like, I have fibromyalgia. It's like, well, get all that regulated and their day-to-day life transforms. And then all of a sudden they feel like themselves and they have energy. And then it's like, all right, now what do you want to do with your life? And they're like, oh my God, it's so fun, you know?
Mhm. I agree. How can you suggest or can you suggest something that anybody can do on a daily basis to tune into their own intuition for those who say, yeah, all this intuition stuff, it sounds great, blah, 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 blah. But how do I do it? How can I do it without taking a class or reading a book or whatever? Is there something simple that anybody can do on a daily basis to help them tune in with their own intuition?
Absolutely. Remove yourself from the stimulus first, because if you got people pulling on you and you're like got all the stimulus going on all the time, it's harder to connect if you're not used to
What do you
connecting.
mean by that? How does somebody remove themselves from the stimulus?
Get away from your family that are pulling on you and asking you for everything. Like if you're around your coworkers and you need a second, go to the bathroom stall, go to your car, take a second to yourself in quiet. Like that's what I'm saying is remove yourself and get to a quiet place for 10 minutes. From there, if your system is heavy and bogged down and you feel like you're like moving through molasses and nothing ever changes, we want to increase inhalation. We want to draw oxygen into the body. And if we just spend, 5-10 minutes to really deep, full breaths and then easy exhalations, that is going to obviously it hyperoxygenates the cells and it just regulates the system in a lot of ways, which is going to, the more we regulate the nervous system, the more easy it is for us to tune into the intuition. Now, if you're amped and you have insomnia and you're swinging all over the place, moody, you're on 27 cappuccinos and a whole bunch of sugar, all those things, long, slow, steady exhalations. We want to trigger that parasympathetic response. And just same thing, where the goal is nervous system regulation. Get yourself to a place, calm, quiet, just for yourself, and regulate your nervous system, starting with breath. Another easy thing, you can lay on your back and put your legs up the wall for 10 minutes. And that's going to draw the energy down into the pelvis. It's going to help to anchor for second and third chakras and get you rooted in your body. Because so many people are not even living in their body. They're either just in their head or they're completely disassociated. The more in your body you are, the easier it's going to be for you to sense your intuition. And from there, trust it. If there's a thought that just randomly pops in, like you got your midstream yap yap, you know how the brain just never shuts up, but all of a sudden that thing pops in, that light bulb moment, listen to that. If you have that sense of like, I got to call that person, do it. That's that's it. And it's not loud banners, even me, mine comes in on like a screen of information here on the left side of my head. And I just get very somatic, visceral, knowings is how mine comes in. So starting to pay attention, but regulate your nervous system through breath, put your legs up the wall, move your body, like any kind of yoga, walking outside, being outside in direct sunlight, that's only going to help. And most people are chronically dehydrated. So getting the cells, getting your system hydrated is going to help. We're just working on opening up the apparatus so that it can actually tune in.
Wonderful. Last question. Why do we incarnate?
Experience, as far as I can tell. We just want to be in the sandbox for a minute.
Mhm. You're extraordinary. My
Thanks.
goodness.
Thanks, how are you?
Well, thanks. Your life path for someone as young as you are has been really remarkable that you've been able to not only survive that death experience and choose to come back, which was very courageous. Your Aunt Bertha was, I know, she was prompting you. And and then how you've been able to integrate what that experience has been into the paramedic and the first responder experience and now into what you're doing now. I and anybody that listens to this sees from the outside, well, this is just all part of your path, and it all makes sense that you've been through all this to get to where you are now to help people, and it's gonna be fun to see where you go from here and how you continue to expand. So, thank you for having golden ovary courage, you know? Guys have brass balls, girls have golden ovaries, and having the courage to come out of the closet and for all of your service with all those people you've helped, not only in your first responder days, but what you're doing now as well. How can people learn more about you and your work?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So sarahkgrace.com is where you can find me to book sessions. That's Sarah with an H. And then I'm just going to show you this because this is launching it's Tuesday. It'll be out by the time this comes. This is Empath X, and it's your lifeline for thriving on earth as a gifted soul. Very much straightforward paramedic protocols. If you're overwhelmed, do this. If you're disassociated, do this. We just keep it simple and clear and then empower, right? It's our time, you guys. There are billions of us on the planet. You are like part of this. We're all part of this, and we are stronger together. When we all come out, support each other, uplift each other, and honor each other's unique gifts, then the whole thing really opens up. And so it's our time. So empath-x.com. You can find the community, courses, and the book. So on October 5th, Sunday, October 5th in Folsom, California, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., we are celebrating the book signing, book launch, and official launch of Empath X. And so anybody who is interested, you're welcome to reach out to me at sarah@sarahkgrace.com for specific details. You're going to find community, like-minded people. You're going to connect just with amazing souls. And again, like I said, it's all about all of us coming together to support and uplift each other. So Sunday, October 5th, Northern California, Folsom, California specifically.
Terrific. And we'll have all of that in the show notes as well. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to those of you who are listening and watching. And Miss Sarah and I are sending you lots of love. Me from Sweet Home, Alabama, mwah, and her from New Mexico. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. To enhance your spiritual journey, click on one of the videos below and remember to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with your family and friends.